Wow. When you can get the state's witness to say, I don't remember what I told the government 2 days ago, you're having a field day on cross-examination. And Nicole Westmoreland, who was acting for the Diddy defense here in the Southern District of New York, was having a time of it in shredding the testimony of Brianna Mangalang, aka Bono, one of the inner circle friends of Cassie Ventura, this afternoon. I am Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I want to break down for you not just how badly it got for the state's witness when she was on cross-examination today, but I also want to speculate for you why things probably unfolded the way that they did. So let me break it down for you. This morning, Bana, whose name we have heard bandied about throughout this trial as being a friend of Cassie's from around 2015 through 2018, and a friend who they did drugs together a lot, and that it was increasing over time, that she had told over several incidents which were news to us. We had heard reference to the fact that there was a friend who was hung over the balcony. Cassie told us how her friend Bana was held over the balcony by Diddy. And Bana was coming in today to tell us that story. But in addition, she came up with two other incidents that were news to most of us. And specifically, one incident where she said she was sleeping and then Diddy came in, threw a knife at Cassie, and Cassie picked up the knife and threw it back at him. That was totally new. We also heard about another incident where she was standing at a photo shoot and Diddy came up and stood close to her in the face and said, I am the devil, I can kill you. Now, these were incidents that we knew nothing about. Cassie didn't testify about this. We didn't hear anyone else talking about those last two incidents. Cassie did testify about the balcony incident, and this is being held over the 17th floor of a balcony that she said her friend Bana had been held over it, and then Diddy threw her down hard onto some of the furniture that was there on the balcony. That is testimony we've heard about during the course of this trial. However, today we had Bana on the stand, and when she told over the story, and the way she described it is that she was on the balcony and Diddy came up behind her, grabbed her from behind and lifted her up. And it sounded like she described the incident as her feet were on the banister, on the railing of the banister, and then Diddy was yelling at her saying, you know what you did, and she's like, I don't know what I did. And to this day, she has no idea what it is that she did, and that she's facing outwards toward the view while he's holding her up there, trying to throw her over the balcony. That was the way it was told over on direct testimony this morning. On cross-examination, we started hearing all sorts of different claims as to how this story had been told over to the government and or in her civil complaint against Diddy. And she has filed a civil complaint against Diddy for $10 million that is still currently pending. That the way she tells the story over is somewhat different. Supposedly, sometimes when she was talking to the government, she said that Cassie was there. Sometimes she wasn't there. Cassie seemed to imply that she was not there at the time that this balcony part came in, that she only showed up after Bana had been thrown onto the furniture. And what was so brutal was that the way Nicole Westmoreland for the defense broke down the timeline of events. So she says that you were with Cassie in November and December of 2023 when Cassie was filing her lawsuit. She spoke to you before she filed it, she spoke to you after she filed it, and you had conversations with her. And she admitted that she had conversations with Cassie where the two of them had different perspectives as to what happened on the date in question. Whether it happened at a hotel or it happened at on the balcony of Cassie's apartment. That Cassie thought it happened at a hotel, and that she thought it happened, and she said it happened at Cassie's house. The date of the incident is something that they didn't agree about. The nature of who was there, whether another person named Tiffany Richards was there or not. Cassie had thought that she was there. Bana said that she wasn't. whether or not Cassie saw her while she was still on the balcony or only saw her afterwards. These are things that, depending on when this story is being told over, has taken on completely different perspectives. And obviously, when you have this completely shifting and amorphous storyline, what Westmoreland was trying to drive home is the two of you spent a lot of time just trying to figure out exactly how you're going to tell this story, and then go out and sue Diddy for it. And it was a very effective cross-examination. A lot of the people in the jury room that I was in, it was not the actual courtroom, it's a viewing room, but a lot of people were snickering and shaking their heads as to the inconsistencies that we were saying, and there were more inconsistencies to come. The inconsistencies also came out later, that she had told the police that she was facing Diddy and that she distinctly remembered him charging toward her, as opposed to him coming up behind her. These are completely different. That one time she said that she was smoking weed or marijuana, another time that she said she was smoking a cigarette, and a third time she said that she was pretending to be smoking marijuana. But the point that the Diddy defense wants to make, and has made fairly effectively, is that this story seems to have a completely different life. And at one point, that her lawyer claimed that the comment that Diddy allegedly made of "I am the devil, I can kill you" was made on the banister, not at a different incident of the photo shoot. The point being that this entire balcony story seems to be something that, depending on the time and the date and who's telling it and when they're telling it, it seems to change exactly how things went down. And one of the last questions we had, and she's still in the middle of cross-examination. In fact, Westmoreland said that she has a lot more to go on cross-examination. But one of the last questions we had about this balcony incident so far was, "And what drugs were you on at that time?" "I don't remember." "And you spoke to the government about the balcony incident on numerous occasions, listing off the dates that she met with the government?" She said, "Yes." "And did you talk about the balcony all the time?" "Yes." "And did you talk with them about it 2 days ago?" "Yeah." "And didn't you tell the government 2 days ago that you don't really recall the balcony incident that well?" "I don't remember." Wow. And the reason that this is so damning, potentially, is because she's now been effectively painted as someone who is creating and crafting stories with the most essential witness, arguably in this case, being Cassie Ventura, that the two of them are working in cahoots to try and formulate and get their stories together. And that's something that we should anticipate the defense is going to be pounding home. Some of the language that is used between the witnesses that seem to be a little bit unusual and mirror each other. And the tone of incredulity that Nicole Westmoreland for the defense was able to use effectively really helped paint and portray the image that many of us were feeling. That you're sitting here saying you didn't talk to them about this. You did talk to them, but not about this testimony. And it's like you start to wonder, really? Because so many issues with her story seem to be cropping up, and so many inconsistencies that seem to be arising depending on when she's telling the story or who she's telling the story over to, that it really creates a problem. So much so that you might think to yourself that the state might have been better if they did not put her on the stand at all. And I want to speculate for you why it is that she did take the stand, especially if you're the government and you see June 2nd, 2 days ago, you haven't put her up on the stand yet, that she doesn't seem to recall the primary incident that you are expecting her to testify about, this whole hanging her over the balcony. So you have to ask yourself, why would the government put her up there on the stand? And my best speculation as to that is, we have heard reference to it in the past. Cassie did talk about it somewhat, and more importantly, they brought it up in opening statements. They brought up that Diddy is this monstrous individual who tried dangling a woman over the edge of a balcony from the 17th floor. So once you throw that out in the opening statement, you're kind of married to that position, and you want to lay out why it is that you made that claim in opening statement. Well, imagine if you're the state, and what you've done is now you've thrown this out in opening statement. And now, when you're prepping this witness 2 days before, 3 weeks into the trial, 2 days before she's supposed to take the stand, and she makes a statement of, I don't really recall what happened with the balcony, you probably think to yourself, oh my God, we don't want to put her on the stand, but what can we do? We told the jury they're going to hear this story, and they didn't really get to hear much of it from Cassie, because Cassie said she came out after was down off the balcony. So, and that she saw her thrown onto the furniture. So I think that's why this unfolded the way it did. I think the state married themselves to telling this story over all the way back in opening statements. And as the trial is going on, and when they're prepping witnesses a couple days before it's their turn to testify, they have no choice and they're locked into it, even when the witness comes out and says, I don't really recall the incident that well. That's what happened this afternoon. She's still in cross-examination. Her cross-examination should wrap up tomorrow. We're expecting to hear from Jane. Jane is the story with the next sex trafficking incident that we've not heard anything about. It's a more recent trafficking allegation, meaning that the incidents range from, instead of being from 2007 to 2018, this trafficking supposedly happened between 2021 and 2024. We're supposed to hear from Jane. We thought we were going to hear from her today. We're supposed to hear from her starting tomorrow, we would expect, once this cross and redirect of Bana is concluded. And I'm going to be here breaking it down for you. If you like this type of thing, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell. Till next time, Godspeed.